district, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offers the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man. Y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
Little John Madden intro to come into today's show. Welcome, Fantasyland, to week 17, man. The finals. I call it Degenerate Week. If you're listening to podcasts this week, you know you're hardcore. And hopefully you've been with us and getting into these finals, man. Guys, people are playing for huge money right now. So as we do it every week, I mean, 6 digits playing fantasy football, we all know is not easy. And tonight's guest has done it. Dan, before we get to tonight's monster of the high-stake lands, how you doing, brother?
Man, doing pretty well. It was a little touch and go earlier today. I got the booster yesterday and was really dragging for most of the day. But we've definitely hit the point where I'm starting to rebound. So look out. Let's go. Yeah,
I'm on the rebound. I was out last week. You guys covered. Thankfully, I had the COVID. Kicked my ass for 48 hours, and then I was back on my feet, man. No problem. The wife got it. We have no idea if my 5-year-old got it. We're going tomorrow, myself and her, just to get a last test at the hospital. But no, man, we're good to go. Theo, how you doing, brother? I know you're pumped for tonight.
No, I'm excited. It's championship week, and we've had a great run of guests really all season. But the last 2 weeks we've had Schrader on. We've had Nelson Sousa on, 2 guys with a ton of NFFC success. And we get the most recent NFFC Primetime winner on tonight. Welcome Kyle Hillesheim to the GOAT District. We're really happy to have you here, and get a chance to talk about how you're doing this year and kind of how you won it last year. How you doing, Kyle?
Doing great. Thanks for having me. It's been a crazy year, but glad we've all got some action here going into last week.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's been a crazy year, and it's ending off kind of crazy too. Just with Madden suddenly, 85, but still kind of suddenly, it wasn't expected or anything. And just the odd playoffs. I know we've talked about it in the DMs, but just really odd fantasy playoffs. Kyle, is that how you've kind of experienced this? We had the bloodbath from a couple weeks ago, and then just every week has been a twist and turn.
Yeah, absolutely. And in all honesty, a lot of people last year either didn't play or didn't play as many teams exactly for this reason. And then last year, it wasn't perfect, but it went pretty smooth overall. And now, as soon as everybody jumps back in, we get this.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah, it's I said it on a couple shows ago. It adds maybe to those that go in with not as much strength as maybe the teams that were running throughout the season. Maybe you get lucky going in the playoffs. This is the year where maybe you have a better chance depending on your depth or how you're able to attack the waiver wire. Let's get into this, man. Tell us about 200 grand. Like I said, 6 digits, not easy to win. You've done it in the NFFC. Excuse me. Talk to us about that, the big win, and also setting the championship round scoring record.
Yeah, it was a crazy couple weeks. Definitely something that early on in my fantasy career will be hard to ever replicate or beat. Frankly, probably will not. But certainly the sweat, going through that is unlike anything that I've ever had, and definitely. One of those things where you kind of feel validated once it's all over too, of, okay, there's a lot of pros in here, a lot of big shots, but the average guy can hang.
Yep. So take us through that sweat a little bit. What you remember of it. How far ahead were you going into, like the Sunday night game, the Monday night game? Did you have a lead? Were you coming from behind? What was the situation?
Yeah, actually, from what I remember going into that last week, we were ahead of the second place team by like 50 or 60 points. And so, as terrible as it sounds at that point, it was, we're just going to be disappointed if we don't win, having that kind of lead. And then Alvin Kamara comes in and scores 50, 60 points on my Vikings on Christmas. Worst Christmas gift ever. Mm-hmm. And we didn't have him. And so, going into that last Sunday was pretty scary, but kind of once we hit that Sunday night game, we still had Diggs going against New England on Monday and like a 30-point lead. And so we were feeling pretty good overall, which is, at that point, you're just relieved because you had the whole entire week to sweat that, kind of thing. And yeah, Diggs was definitely a monster last year for sure. So
Joey Brown making an appearance.
Yes,
he's got his record straight.
Joey was top 10 last year in the NFFC Primetime as well. So Joey was definitely sweating it that last day.
For sure.
Damn. And he's making a run at the
Bullet.
Silver
He's
Bullet.
up there in the Bullet.
Yeah. He had kind of a bad first week in the playoffs, but then came roaring back last week. So he's right in there. So good luck to Joey, and hopefully you can bring it home. I'm sitting back in about 40th place. I just got too many players out last week. I just couldn't recover. So, it is what it is.
Yeah, I had my my primetime team last year. I was getting visions of making a real run at it. Last week I had AJ Brown just go off, and I'm sending JD and Dan a screenshot saying, look, I'm up to 6th in the primetime. And then of course, Tyreek Hill, Justin Herbert, James Conner out, and it's just it's a couple things go wrong and you're just completely out of it. So much respect to guys who are taking it down, like Kyle.
Yep.
For sure, guys. Sorry, Dan. If you're listening, grab your pen and paper, right? These are the guys you want to hear about, the guys that have done it not just, one time flash in the pan. Sorry, Dan, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and for all we complain about this year and how, terrible it's been in the playoffs and everything, I mean, it's still kind of the same game at the end. You've still got to thread a narrow path to victory. And
true.
Obviously everybody but one team is going to fail at that. So to a certain extent, there's not much difference to it. It's just a lot more, mentally frustrating or whatever, emotionally frustrating, whatever you want to call it. This year, when you keep thinking, oh yeah, I got this great team, and then just they keep getting picked off during the week. I mean, we're used to the injuries on, at Sunday and, or even Monday night or whatever, and you get that bad piece of injury news on Tuesday that the MRI came bad and it came back and it wasn't good. But I mean, just losing guys to COVID day after day after day, it's demoralizing. So, but again, we keep doing the best we can. And, like I say, it's just one team is going to thread that needle, and, you never know who it's going to be.
And Kyle, I wanted to quickly ask you, not on the show sheet, but your educational background. I know your father mentioned this to me at one point about how he thinks this helps you with your fantasy football skills. Maybe you could tell everybody a little bit about that.
I'm not sure I fully agree with that, but I went to school for actuarial science, mathematics, stats. And I mean, there's certainly, if I was more in the statistician side of things from a career pathing perspective, maybe. But I would say the one place that type of stuff does help out is logical reasoning, right? That's a lot of stuff that you learn with math, and really from fantasy football, that a lot of that is kind of where it applies, right? Even from the simple things this year, like, there's bad reports about Brandon Ayuk coming up to the season and, him potentially not being featured as much in the offense, and Deebo Samuel's ADP isn't moving. Maybe that's, something we should take a look at, and just things that, quicker to make jumps, hopefully. But yeah, I'm definitely not somebody that's crunching a bunch of spreadsheets behind the scenes or anything. So I won't pretend there.
That's all right, though. That makes me feel better, because I am definitely not one of those person who's, crunching a ton of numbers. I look and, I use my gut a lot. I follow what other players are doing and, kind of pick what I think makes sense to me and all that kind of stuff. But, I have a hard time with the hard and fast projections because I just, I think every player is kind of, rather than one single, like he's going to score 223 fantasy points. It's kind of a range of outcomes, and every curve is differently shaped. So I just try to, envision what that curve looks like in my head. Is it, skewed to the left, skewed to the right, pretty much center or whatever. So
there's a lot of variance in football too, right? And so there's only so far that you're going to be able to get with projections. I mean, you really do have to be able to read in between the lines and kind of understand bigger picture. That's why I think things like roster construction and some of those more nuanced areas are probably just as important as having good projections.
A wise man once said that's why the football's not round, right? The way it bounces is never perfect, and that's what keeps us. If we could predict it, I mean, it wouldn't be as fun, right? That's kind of the fun. We complain about it, Dan, like you said, especially in the playoffs because we got so much money on the line. You killed it all year, and then all of a sudden your top three guys are not playing that week going in, and you're nervous, and especially when your backups don't perform. It's crushing, but you know what? That's part of it. If it didn't happen now, maybe it happened in an earlier week, or there's other factors that play. So hopefully we helped you guys throughout the season to maneuver through it. You'll get more tonight with Kyle here. I see a bunch of questions in the chat, guys. Keep them coming. We'll try to throw them in. There's some week 17 questions. We'll go as we go through the show. But before we get into specifics, I like to ask our guest Kyle, do you have a favorite source, favorite follow on Twitter, or maybe a site that you use often, or a tool that you think is maybe underrated that our audience can benefit from?
Yeah. Listen to the show the last couple of weeks. I've heard this mentioned a couple times, but PFF and Dwayne McFarland he's doing God's work out there. And if you're not following him or using his utilization metrics, you gotta. He is so extremely intelligent and can't say enough nice things. Haven't actually had a chance to meet him, but would definitely shake his hand. Otherwise, the one thing that I think I probably use maybe more than others is I actually really like to look at Vegas lines, especially preseason, and try to kind of differentiate where Vegas and their props may be, where they're higher on the field in general or lower on the field in general, and then really dig into why. One example this year, someplace that I really should have listened more to Vegas was Deandre Swift. Was they had him, his rushing totals, his receiving totals had him as a top 12 back pretty clear. And of course I'm sitting here, I don't really feel like he's a third round pick, barely take him in the fourth round. And then he comes out for the most part, obviously, until it's his injury and just smashes.
I think that's a great answer. And that's the first time I've heard one of our guests talk about that. But I think that's something that, that's interesting. That's something I feel like I could do a better job of. Do you think that their prop lines are generally sharp, or it's something that you've seen big misses from?
Kind of going back to variance, there's certainly misses when it comes to injury, or if people are betting pretty heavy on one side, I'm sure there's some line movement there. But overall, Vegas doesn't lose money, right? At the end of the day, they're going to be sharper than most, if not all, of the people in our industry. And so, they're the ones that are setting those lines. And I typically, if it's a couple yards here or there, 50 yards throughout the season, that's not a huge deal. But when you see pretty big disparities, kind of taking a step back and looking and saying, okay, why are people really high or low on these specific players? And, can you tell a really good story for it? Or is it just that we're all touting a player way too high, or really down on a player for a reason that, he plays for the Detroit Lions, for example?
Right.
Guys,
so what are some of your favorite sources for those preseason props? What any particular sites you like to go to, or any particular casinos that you try to dive into? Or
there's a couple of aggregates that I'll Google that kind of have just some of the stuff side by side. I have like the BetMGM app that I'll take a look at, and the lines obviously move throughout the year, but I'll kind of copy some of those down into that. I just joked before about how I didn't have a bunch of spreadsheets, but I will copy some of those down into Google Sheets and kind of compare to where, if we calculate out what the fantasy points are, what that looks like throughout the year. But I think, for the most part, if you can look at some of the main books that are out there, pretty much they're all pretty close overall. I mean, if you shop lines, you can get a little bit of a difference, but it's not like you're seeing 200-yard differences one way or the other.
I think some might just focus more on prop bets, or they'll have more prop bets than others. I think is usually the variation there. Theo, before I pass to you guys, remember to smash the like. The only channel bringing you 6-digit winners on the regular, and that's from January to December, guys. I saw a question, Jose Pena, shout out, asking about best ball content this offseason. Guys, we're going to smash it with the best ball this offseason. I know we're not going to be doing, obviously, the tailgate show. Maybe we replace that with some ball and some best ball specific. But for sure, on this show and throughout the offseason, we'll be touching on best ball, dynasty, redraft, high stakes, all of it. So make sure you guys are tuning in and you subscribe. Go ahead, Theo. Sorry, brother.
Yeah, so just to reiterate what JD just said, the FFPC has their best ball contest paying out $125,000. Dan, it's 125 or 100?
I believe
100. It was 125 buy-in, 100K to the winner.
So, excuse me, I was confused on that. So it's 100K to the winner, and the GOAT District had four of the final 12 on this year. We had Mike Leone of Establish the Run. We had Billy Muzio of Fantasy Data. We had Todd Burrows on, and we had Chad Schrader on. So, I mean, we're really bringing you some of the best, best ball players in the entire country, and it shows with this big contest. So, JD, I'm excited to do some best balls with you guys. I know.
Yeah, man, for sure.
Dan's gonna be organizing a couple of those.
I love it.
Right as we get into the playoffs. So I'm stoked, but we're definitely going to help your best ball game this offseason. And it's great to see the guys we had on and discuss best ball strategy do so well.
Exactly.
Best of luck to those guys if they're listening tonight.
That's huge, man. You got to walk the walk, right?
Absolutely.
Yep.
All right, guys, let's get into the goodness. Should we care? Is a segment, just things that either happened recently or that are in the news. Miles Sanders, a guy that maybe did not perform up to expectations for those who did draft him this year. He's a no-go going to week 17. Kyle, should we care?
Not really. I mean, Boston Scott is probably a fine play if you need him. And I guess with all the news that we've been, hearing throughout the weeks with people going off on the COVID list, if you have him, you're probably comfortable starting him if you need to. Definitely more so if Jordan Howard doesn't play. But all in all, it's not like, Boston Scott jumps up to be some, top 5 back or anything like Rojo. So I would say generally probably not.
Yeah, I would agree with Kyle. I wrote about both Howard and Scott in my waiver wire column. I kind of would think that Scott's the stronger ad because Howard took a knock as well. But treat those guys as flexes. If you get stuck, you could use them as an RB2. But they're more of a flex play. And if they're both healthy, it's probably going to be some kind of a split. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, I think it just kind of comes down to what goes on with Jordan Howard. And, if he's playing, it'll definitely be a split. If not, Boston Scott or even Kenny Gainwell. Gainwell's healthy, right? I can't even remember. I don't know.
He's just still in the doghouse. That's all.
Okay. Yeah. So you never know. He might make a surprise appearance, but that would be definitely the desperation play. I would say Boston Scott and Jordan Howard would be your top 2 plays here.
Tampa, Dan, we were high on the Bucks just overall coming into this season. I think, from the quarterback to the tight ends to you name it. Mike Evans coming back from injury, but now on the COVID list. Rashad Perryman making a reappearance. Should we care?
I mean, I guess I probably care a little bit more about Perriman. I think Evans is going to be out one way or another, whether it's COVID or the hamstring. It kind of sounded like they were planning on it likely being at least a 2-week absence for him and maybe more. We have not seen, Tampa Bay rushing people back really much at all this year. So I think you can safely, put Evans on your bench. If you can pick up Perriman. Nobody else really did much other than Antonio Brown in the absence of Evans and Godwin, and then of course the running backs was a whole different story. But there was some good news in the running back room. At least Ronald Jones didn't completely fall on his face, so we're happy about that.
Theo, I'm going to give you a different one. I'm going to give you, I know you had it already, but I'm going to give you a different one just because, Dan just nailed it as usual. So Hunter Henry and Gronk, two big tight ends. I mean, especially this year with, a lot of tight ends not giving you what you want. These were two guys that were producing pretty regularly, one catch each this past Sunday. Do we care?
I mean, I think that you care a little bit more for Hunter Henry than you do Gronk. I think Gronk is Gronk. I mean, it's even if you're a little bit negative on him right now, it's kind of hard to keep him out of the top 6 or 7 tight ends. You can make an argument he's tight end 5-ish this week. But Hunter Henry is pretty touchdown dependent. I think that if you're in a league that's maybe a 15-man league where you can play the waiver wire, I might be more comfortable looking at a guy like maybe a Gerald Everett who's been seeing some consistent volume than a kind of a touchdown dependent guy like Henry. I like Henry, but I think he's probably a high end tight end too. But Gronk is Gronk. Leave him in. Don't overthink it. Don't get cute on championship week. What do you think, Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, Gronk is Gronk, and he's the volume isn't always there with him, but you're starting him if you have him, unless you have Kelsey, Kittle, or Andrews, and that's about the only group that I would really be comfortable starting over him. Hunter Henry is interesting. He had, I think, 6 targets in the game and only caught 1, but he's somebody where transparently, I played James O'Shaughnessy over him last week just because terrible matchup, just not really somebody that I was looking to play. And now, they play Jacksonville, and we go back to variance. I could see him scoring 2 touchdowns and a blowout win, or I could see them getting ahead and just pounding the ball, and their defense scores a touchdown and he gets another game with 1 target. So very, very risky play. He's definitely got the highest ceiling on a lot of these guys, but not somebody that I'm really considering a good floor play.
Yeah, and just one additional thought on that. Gronk ran a ton of routes this past week. And it's pretty rare that we see him just out there, getting his cardio in. So
it's because Brady had his roommate back, man. He was like, dude, we've been tossing avocados all morning. Let's just do this on the field,
Get you warmed up against Carolina.
Exactly. I'll go back to you, Kyle. The Rams, the backfield, interesting. Hendo, like in Dynasty, you're thinking, oh man, should have sold him. But I know I got one team going into the finals, Goats versus Pros, and I had Hendo, but I also have Akers. I mean, I don't mind holding both, because you can kind of play, I don't do it often in a backfield, having both guys. I rather kind of, spread the love in different offenses. But with Akers coming back possibly this week, should we care?
I mean, I think it'll be tough to start Akers unless you absolutely need to. And I still would feel pretty comfortable starting Michelle, as like an RB2. I mean, even with Henderson back, and I'm not sure how healthy he was that whole time, but I mean, Michelle has done just fine in that backfield. McVay, that offense is going to move the ball. If they get way ahead, we'll see, they may just not play Akers because they don't want to re-injure or something, but something where it's going to be a very, very interesting picture, and especially in Dynasty over these next couple of years, and something where none of these backs have really proven they can stay healthy. And so having any of these 3 guys, you're going to get startable weeks out of them, over the next few years, honestly.
I think that's a great call by Kyle. Dan has brought up multiple times over, the last pretty much since Cam Akers' injury, that we have some doubts about his staying power, his ability to come back. He certainly looks great in like the little clips we have of him running without pads on and with pads on. But I think that Darrell Henderson is kind of like a beat up dynasty guy that you could get right now. Especially if Akers comes back strong, I think that's the kind of guy you want to have on your bench because he has, shown that he can perform at a very high level. But for this week, it's the Sony Michel show. Sony looks great. Sony had 27 carries last week and looks really good. He's had 2 really good games back to back. So I wouldn't expect much out of Akers. I think Akers also Dan might know this a little better than I would, but I think that part of the reason for rushing him back before the Henderson injury was to get for this year to qualify for his pension. Maybe Dan, you could explain that a little more.
Yeah, so you got to have 3 games on the active roster to qualify for that, to make it a qualifying year. And so they were doing him a solid by getting him back on for that, And as far as like this week, I'd be shocked if Akers had more than a handful of carries, if he has any at all. If Henderson is indeed out this week, Akers might be active. He also might not be active. I mean, they have other ways they could go too. And if he is active, I think it's just going to be, they're just going to get him like, 2, 3, 4 carries, whatever, just to kind of, give him a chance to shake the rust off, get the jitters out, all that kind of stuff. With it, as far as his long-term prospects, I mean, I'll be rooting for Akers as hard as anybody. However, I am not investing in Akers anywhere until I see that great season, because I think he's going to be going too high. The risk of ruin there, I think, is significant with a guy like him. He's somebody who I see as having kind of that, that tail that's, weighted towards the negative outcomes, and then, kind of a long skinny tail out towards the positive outcomes for next year. And that's just not a risk I'm really willing to take unless, I feel like his ADP is, coming out at the very, at the very worst possible, if he's available in the 6th, 7th, 8th round, yeah, sure. Who wouldn't? But if he's like a 3rd rounder or something like that, not for me.
So basically, you're telling me my team's fucked because I don't.
Well, yeah. let me say this: you might want to you take some evasive action there. See if you can maybe pick up Daria Ogunbowale or somebody like that.
Sounds good. Dan's the waiver wire magician. He's just the wizard.
Go trade for Rex.
Theo is a waiver wire magician. Go
get Rex Burkhead, JD.
Can't trade anymore, man. Playoff team can't trade.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah. One last running back. I was not high on this guy at all this year. I know, Dan, you joked that you had 0 shares. I have 1 share of this guy, and it was in that $77 best ball we did the hard way. That was my only share, and I remember I think it was one of the first best ball drafts we did, and all the running backs went right off the board the first 2 rounds, and panic draft there with J-Rob. But J-Rob tearing his Achilles, Kyle. What is that? Is that something that matters for you?
I mean, you feel for the guy, right? He's undrafted, comes in. He was actually on the championship team for us last year, so I got a special place for him in my heart. But definitely something where I'm not sure of the extent of this injury yet, and he plays for the Jags. I mean, next year, I can't see them being that much better, depending on, I guess, who they get in as head coach. But definitely probably a similar situation for me next year as you, JD, this year, where I'm going to have a really hard time drafting him.
Yeah. Let's throw a quick one on the board before we move into the GM masterclass with Kyle. Javonte, Patterson, Penny, or Elijah Mitchell? He needs to start 2. Kyle, as our guest, do you have 2 on here that you prefer?
Oh my. I haven't looked a ton into these matchups, so I think Theo and Dan might have a stronger opinion here than I, but it's tough to not play Cordero, right? I mean, I have a hard time not playing him. And then I guess is Mitchell healthy? Is Mitchell healthy and confirmed to?
Mitchell's up in the air. I would probably bet it's Wilson. Never say never, but it's Houston.
Oh,
I would probably. I do think they stick with Wilson for Houston.
Yeah,
I mean,
FFPC. Tough one.
FFPC is saying may be available in time for Week 17 matchup against the Texans, according to Shanahan.
Yeah, if he was coming back healthy, I would love to play Mitchell, but especially if Lance is going to start, that's going to be a very, very interesting game. I lean Patterson, and I mean probably Penny.
He's been on a tear. No, I was going to say, like, how can you sit the guy?
I know, it's just it's so hard for me to recommend starting Penny over
because he's burned us so many times. That's why.
He's playing the Lions this week, so That's
I think Penny might be the most. It's crazy as it is. Penny might be the most obvious start on this list right now because he's going to get 15 plus carries against the Lions at home and potential for more. Patterson kind of scares me a little bit. That game at Buffalo, I feel like Atlanta might just get obliterated that game. I mean, obviously, if you have Patterson, you're probably starting him, but Javonte against the Chargers. That's Shreekrant's question, JD, because Shreekrant put a really hard one on there. That's a difficult one this week. I'd have to think about it, but I could see that Buffalo game really, really getting away from the Falcons and just complete beatdown. Buffalo showed like they have a little juice. They just beat their rivals. A big weight off their shoulders right there. I could see them just unloading against the Falcons, and who knows Patterson's usage in a blowout. Whereas I think Javonte is going to be in a competitive game. Penny's going to be in a positive matchup. I might go Penny and Javonte, assuming Elijah's out, which is crazy, but that's probably where my head would be at.
Yeah, I don't hate fading Cordarrelle. He's really been a lot less of a pass catcher in recent weeks and a lot more just rushing. And so that, I think, makes him a little bit more dangerous. And really it's been 4 weeks since he's crested 14 PPR points. It definitely could happen at any time, but I just kind of wonder whether Buffalo would be the place where that would happen or not. So I think I would probably fade him and probably take Javonte, as Theo was suggesting, probably Javonte and Penny, or if for sure Mitchell's coming back, and everything, the coaches are talking real positive about him. I mean, Mitchell against Houston, that's an easy one. Then it would be Penny and Mitchell for me. But I think Penny's the common denominator for all of us, and then the rest of it is kind of wait and see.
Yeah, still early, guys. Keep the questions coming, though. We appreciate it for sure. We'll keep answering them. Let's get into the GM masterclass. That's why he's here. Kyle, I'll start this off. We'll go around with the questions. We want to know when you're looking at your portfolio coming into the season. We've had guys coming in here with like hundreds of teams. Some come in here with a dozen. Some somewhere in the middle. What does your seasonal portfolio look like? Are you playing different types of fantasy? You sticking to seasonal? Give us an idea before we get into some more details.
Yeah, I'd say I'm probably 70% seasonal, 30% best ball. Probably going forward, we'll do a lot more best ball just because it's so easy to do and manage, and there's a lot of good, especially high-end tournaments out there. But I don't do a ton of dynasty. Mostly stick to seasonal and really, frankly, some of the high stakes like NFFC Primetime type leagues.
And when do you start drafting, Kyle? Like we've talked to people who really get it going. Do you try to get in the early primetime drafts, or are you kind of trying to wait and draft a little closer to end of August?
I like to wait as much as possible. I'll do a couple feeler drafts here and there just to kind of see. But kind of up until really the last week of August, it's mostly best ball season. And then kind of I'll wait to see how the first couple of prime times are shaking out, get a good feel for that ADP. And then if I feel like there's a lobby that makes sense, I'll jump in. And I think I did 1 or 2 drafts in August this year, but really kind of hit it hard come early September, kind of that first week there.
Yep, totally makes sense. And I found also that if you can sneak in a couple 3 of the RotoWire online championships during primetime season, they're a little bit easier. So I managed to get a couple of them snuck in there and did really well with those.
Which site is that on? The RotoWire?
That's NFFC.
NFFC.
Okay. I'm just getting more. I've been doing best ball 10s on the NFFC, like on that platform, and just kind of exploring the NFFCs. I've got that top 20 team right now in the NFFC 25 or whatever that is. I don't think I can move up that much more, just because it seems like a lot of the teams have the same guys. Our buddy Ben Cunningham, that's in our I think it's in the Hardaway chat. He's also one of these top 25-ish teams. But yeah, really cool type of tournaments out there. So for our FFPC audience, keep playing FFPC. It's awesome. But there's ways you can kind of spread the love and extend your portfolio as per se. Ben, why don't you take the next one, brother? Oh, sorry, Theo.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, you'll see pretty much all of the successful players that have come on the GOAT District are doing best balls, at least at some point in their preparation. I think that, I was talking to somebody about how to improve as a fantasy player the other day, and I said, just hop in these best ball drafts, because you just get in the flow of drafting. You have to make quick decisions. And then when you get to some of the true best ball leagues, you have to go very deep into rosters, and it gets you starting to think about maybe some second and third string guys that are interesting to you. And you don't have to do, crazy expensive ones, but I think that regularly doing them in the off season really helps your process by the end of the summer. And that's one thing that I get excited about doing with Dan and JD, doing some of these early best ball drafts where we can it just goes to show, guys, are some guys going to move ADP wise? Where are you getting them now? And it just makes you a better and sharper fantasy player, I think. Even if you're not into best ball, use it as part of your preparation.
Right. And you don't have to spend a lot of money at it. As you said, you can do $5, $10, $35, $25, $50. There's all kinds of 77s. There's all different levels there. And, the nice thing is you can get in at a level where you're comfortable doing a bunch of drafts. And, as Theo said, you just get real comfortable with, how the drafts are flowing and so forth. There's some times where I get done with the draft, I'm like, oh, not doing that again. That did not go well. Like I thought it might, and you kind of learn, well, if I'm in the, if I'm in the 8 hole or 9 hole, I need to focus more on wide receivers earlier, because they're all going to dry out by the time, there's 100 different lessons you can pick up from every different draft slot. And, it will just kind of help you do that. And then also you see, different people do some oddball stuff. And so you learn how to kind of adjust with what's going on the board, so you never feel, like when you're in a draft, when I go to Vegas, I never feel uncomfortable in any way about how the draft is going. I may cuss out a few people under my breath every now and then, but and Kyle may or may not have been one of them. But for taking my players, but that's all right. All's fair in love and war, right? So but you learn how to adjust to it, and when your guy's gone, okay, well, I got to pivot over to this is my plan B or my plan C, and so you feel real comfortable with it.
It's also the most up-to-date information you can have is when you're doing these drafts, because this website you're on or the article that was written, that's from whether it's hours, days, or weeks or months, especially in the off season. That's how you keep your finger on the pulse. That's like you're working out as a fantasy football player. If you take it serious and you are investing in teams and in these big tournaments, you got to do best balls, man. That's my opinion. I think you're hearing it loud and clear. A lot of these successful guys are doing best ball, whether it's a big investment or small investment. It's just to get kind of tweak and work on your skills, right, as a drafter.
And just curious, Kyle, do you do DFS as well?
I do. It's something where I work full time, and balancing that plus seasonal gets really tough to play DFS seriously, because I think if you really want to grind DFS, it is a very, very strenuous grind. And so I play pretty casually. Definitely not something that I'm looking to make a career of anytime soon, but DFS is another good way, especially kind of throughout the season to understand even some different season-long contests or some season-long concepts like leverage and some of these other things. If you really get into DFS, I think it's even small stakes is a good thing to look up.
Yep.
How about your approach to waivers? Are you generally somebody who wants to spend a lot on one guy, get that guaranteed Elijah Mitchell type, or are you the kind of guy that wants to sit back and maybe sign, put in bids for the fifth highest guy of the week and continually churn? Or is it team specific?
So it's somewhat team specific, but I'm probably never going to be the guy that spends 800 plus on Elijah Mitchell. I'm a big fan of churning backup running backs or guys that are one injury away from being a workhorse. Guys like Khalil Herbert this year was a very commonly picked up dude for me. Alex Collins, some of these guys that were more in like the 50 to 150 range throughout the year. And then I'm a big fan of streaming defense as well, where I'll intentionally carry two defenses where, if I don't have a stud defense, I will literally pick up the team that I feel has the best matchup the next week and kind of stream that way. And so trying to balance some of that stuff becomes really difficult if I do spend 800 on Elijah Mitchell. But, certainly I was putting in 650 bids for him, and I didn't get him anywhere this year.
But sorry, I was just going to add to the question, Theo. Does the time of the season play a factor? Like, are you more aggressive at the beginning or the end of the season, or is it still just mostly based on the need of your rosters?
If there's a pressing need right away, I'm certainly. It's first or worst. I'm not. You don't try to take sixth place in your league, but I really like to, around weeks 4 or 5, get a really good feel for my team and the league that I'm in and say, is this team in a good position to succeed now? Or if I continue on this path, is this team going to be in, 7th, 8th place at the end of the year? And so for some of those teams, we'll go very, very aggressive on certain players where even though the odds might not necessarily be in my favor, you have to do something versus just sitting and bleeding out all the way, to 7th or 8th place. So I think it's team dependent, but at some point you really have to look at your team, see how much of a contender it is today, and then go aggressively get certain players or take reaches on certain players in Fab.
What were some of your big hits this year in Fab? Did anybody really help you out this year that you picked up, off the waiver wire?
Yeah. Kendrick Bourne was one that was a pretty cheap guy. Gotten a few spots. I'll mention this one just for the playoffs, but I did pick up Byron Pringle and kind of was the handcuff, quote unquote, to Tyreek Hill and Kelsey as we were seeing COVID start to pick up. So I actually did get a chance to play him last week, which was pretty cool. But otherwise, this year there were plenty of guys that were kind of streamed throughout the year, like got a couple good weeks from Herbert. Alex Collins was up and down. Dawson Knox ended up being a pretty good tight end for some people, but there weren't a ton of really core waiver wire pickups this year like I've seen in the past. Because again, even Elijah Mitchell, I think only 13 teams make it to the playoffs with him in the primetime. So with injuries and such this year, waivers were much more in favor of streaming certain players or, buying points from backups, things like that.
Yep, totally makes sense. And, I think, for my part, I'll definitely be aggressive on the waivers where I need to. I did add Elijah Mitchell in quite a few spots. I didn't work out quite as well as I'd hoped, but I'm also not sorry about it because, if he had been able to remain uninjured, I think he would have been an absolutely smash pick. You have to know with a guy of his size that, injuries could turn into a problem, but that's part of fantasy football. You've got to take some chances if you want to win the big money, and some of them are going to come through and some of them aren't. Yeah.
And if he had stayed healthy, no doubt in my mind that he's a very, represents a lot of teams in that playoff, and obviously health is always going to be a thing in football. And so it's just a question of, right, do you want to risk on somebody being able to stay healthy? Because if he did, he was going to take you there, right? It's just you're kind of narrowing your risk on kind of that one scenario.
Yeah. And really how much I bid on kind of depended on how much my teams need. I had some enforcer bids and I had some bids where I'm like, I'm getting aggressive on this guy because I really need a running back. And if this guy can last all year, this team is going places, I think, so that's always the, the give and take when you're looking at your waiver bids. Just trying to figure out how much is this player worth to this team.
Yep.
How balanced do you try to keep your portfolio of players? Do you find yourself drafting the same players, over and over again, maybe in the later rounds? And do you try to change it up if you see yourself getting a little too overweight potentially on one guy, or do you just draft to the best team you can each draft?
It's actually something where this year I stepped up the amount of teams that I did and did a couple more, and I would say mistakenly tried to diversify probably more than I should have. There's certain guys, especially in the early rounds, that was pretty high on and so focused and got a couple shares of them. I mean, the ones that worked out were guys like Cooper Kupp. The ones that didn't were guys like Jerry Jeudy. But there were other areas where I'm sitting in my fourth draft and I already have a couple shares of Kupp, and I go, maybe I should diversify here and take Lockett. I'm not doing 100 teams. It doesn't really make sense for me to diversify that much if there's guys that we're really high on. But then when it comes to later in the draft, I'm pretty big on having a couple of core guys and mixing it up here and there. But there's certain roster constructions that I'll do that I'm hammering running back mostly towards the mid to late, kind of for like round 10 to like 15. And so I'm not really mixing up too much there. I'm just going based on what I need from a roster perspective.
I think it's a good point with the especially Cooper Kupp. That one name just kind of resonates for me too. Just you do a bunch in a row and you don't want the same main guys. And like you said, there's a reason you like them, but you're trying to, you're looking at spreading the ownership when it maybe doesn't play a factor based on the volume you're playing.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, the better pick is the better pick, right? And unless you're trying to hedge again 100 teams, you should probably just go with a guy that's, projecting much higher throughout the year and that you have clearly ranked ahead.
Especially when there's such good value, like those guys, like you mentioned Debo earlier and Kupp.
Yeah, and I think people try to get too much diversification. Like you guys said, I think that it matters a lot based on how many teams you draft, but I think that doesn't always correlate. Like if you have 10 teams total, you don't need to diversify. Like that's not high volume. I think sometimes you hear about these higher volume players who want to keep their percentages maybe like below 25%, whatever the threshold is, and that kind of carries over into general sharp strategy. And I think it's just you've got to understand it's high volume.
They've got like 100
really
teams. They've got 100 teams, and if one guy goes down, it sinks like a serious investment there. Whereas if it's just your 20 teams and you invested 40% in a guy, it's a lot different, right? So you got to kind of quantify that.
Yeah, and I also think it's to me it should be also, if you're going to track it, it's for the format you're in. So if you have a ton of NFFC primetime teams, maybe you want to change it up a little bit. But if it's across, how many guys do you have in FFPC, NFFC, and maybe these other formats, it's like that's not something we should be looking at.
Yeah, and even best ball versus season long, that's definitely a trap that I fell into this year where, Jonathan Taylor, smashing him throughout all of best ball season, loved it. And then the community starts to cool on him a little bit. I get to prime times and I go, ooh, maybe I shouldn't be, 70% exposed to Jonathan Taylor.
I think that's a really good point, though. That's a really good point because you see it.
Yeah. Yeah, you really have to put those best ball teams to the side and, kind of go from ground zero again.
And sites like the FFPC, Dan, sorry to cut you off, but you'll attest to this. It's easy for you to look up your ownership, and then you can filter out whether it's best ball, whatever, tournament, redraft, whatever it is, so that you can kind of have that ownership balance that you want based on the format or the tournament.
Yep, absolutely. And, one thing that I've seen different people do is they assign a dollar value, like if you own Jonathan Taylor in a bunch of $25 leagues, you put a 25 next to him every time you draft him in those $25 leagues. And then, if you take him,
I've never heard that. That's interesting.
A $1,500 or $1,700 league, then that's a whole different thing. It only takes one Jonathan Taylor there to equal up a whole bunch of Jonathan Taylors elsewhere. But the most important thing is you feel like, oh, I've got plenty of Jonathan Taylor, as Kyle was saying, and then you look at it in terms of your total dollar ownership across all the different things, and it's like, oh yeah, I don't really own that much Jonathan Taylor at all. So that's one thing that Austin Martin does a lot. Good friend of the show, has been on the show a couple times. Also has taken down one of these major contests, the playoff challenge a couple years ago. So that resonates with me because he'll talk about, I gotta, I've got like a Chevy Malibu on this particular player, talking about how much money he's got tied up.
He's got a Honda Civic worth of Deandre Swift.
Yes, that's it.
There you go.
I knew I was getting the car wrong, but for sure.
And shout out to Austin. He's 5th place right now in the FFPC main event. So we're rooting for him there.
Yeah, man,
that's huge.
For sure. Let's throw a quick cue, Dan, on the screen here. Paul Miller dropping a good one. I don't know if you want to read it. I know you were interacting with him a bit earlier.
Okay, yeah. So he lost J-Rob to injury. Has Jordan Howard on the bench. Should he start him or drop Mike Evans since he's out? And this is for the championship, and then pick up either Jeff Wilson Jr. or the Jags backup. And I think. Well, to just kind of throw an opinion out first, I think Howard is maybe a little bit risky right now. We'll know more tomorrow, and I don't know when your waivers run. But if your waivers don't run until we at least get that first practice report, that would help out a lot. Evans is probably safe to drop, but I think there's a 90% chance he's not playing. But I guess I'm not willing to say it's 100% chance he's not playing. What do you guys think on that?
Yeah, can you drop James Robinson, Jordan Howard, and pick up both Wilson Jr. and the Jags backup, and then just if Mitchell's playing, we'll play the backup. If not, then you play Jeff Wilson.
I think Kyle's right with that one. I think that's the strategy to take, especially with COVID. It's funny in a lot of these home leagues. I'm writing this waiver wire column this year, and I'm saying that you actually want to have the quality depth, whereas in past seasons, depth in week 17 meant absolutely nothing. But now you need to have some guys you can put into your RB2 spot, into your flex spot. You don't want to have to do that scramble. So it's important to have depth here. So I think even to me, Jeff Wilson is a quality start this week. But having Dari Ogunbowale, if something happened to Wilson, God forbid, at least you have a running back who's going to start. But I have very low expectations for Dari this week. But Wilson, I think, is a quality start. I think he's an RB2.
Yeah, with the Jags playing, they're playing the Patriots, right? This week.
Yep, they are.
Okay. And so with Ogunbowale, you're actually kind of hoping more for check down passes and that kind of thing. He's probably not going to be scoring a ton of touchdowns, that's for sure. All right.
Patriots off of a loss should be a fun one to start the.
You could tell from Bill's post game interview that it's going to be a fun one this week.
We're going to see a 40-point from the Patriots defense, and somebody's going to win hundreds of thousands of dollars from it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
that's it.
Exactly.
That's it for sure.
All right, and JD, what do you think about this one? Our buddy Shrikant.
I'm trying to pull up the matchups for this one. Who's Dallas playing this week?
Dallas is
Arizona.
playing
Arizona. Yep.
And
that's the highest total game of the week. It's like a 50-point total already.
Yeah, I'm probably going Pollard. I mean, Jefferson's getting 2 or 3, maybe, if that, targets a game. I'm probably going Pollard. If I'm way off on those targets, I apologize. But out of the 3, Howard is the guy I want the least. I know it's point per carry, but again, just because of what we talked about earlier, Pollard kind of offers the best of both worlds. So I'll probably go Pollard here.
So I might go Van this week because it's championship week.
Because you don't think the Sets are playing, or?
I think it's more. It's just to me that Ravens-Rams game is. I like the potential for a shootout there. I like playing the highest ceiling guy. I had to start Pollard, last week in a league. It's just
and it hurt.
Yeah, it was the team actually did pretty well, but it was kind of like it was a James Conner team where I had to put in Pollard, but the team did fine. But it was more like you're just kind of hoping for things to go right in terms of usage when it comes to Pollard. Zeke is there. I think Van is to me the highest upside guy of the three. It's a sneaky question though. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, if Jordan Howard is all systems go, he's probably going to be a solid start. Especially racking up 0.2 points per carry. I think Jefferson's probably got the highest ceiling. Howard might actually be the one with the most steady floor. So I think it kind of depends a little bit what you need. You can see Howard scoring a touchdown or two against Washington. I mean, Washington just got eviscerated last week by Dallas, and Philadelphia probably runs even better than Dallas. So, it's hard to really, say which one is best, but I think all three are pretty similar options.
Kyle, you talked earlier about looking at kind of prop bets with sites on a weekly basis. Would that be kind of your tip for our audience? Like, because I know for me, start sits is my least favorite part of fantasy. I like it's that, and then waiver wire is like right after that. But I'll draft them and I'll trade and I'll build them. I love all that. But do you have any tips when it comes to your start sits? To something that you found has brought you success?
Yeah, I mean, I'll use going back to Dwayne McFarland. I know he does a tier list every week. I also use Establish the Run a lot. I think they actually have some pretty solid projections overall. So, somebody's in the same tier, but ETR's got him projected 1.5 better or with a much better ceiling, I'll probably lean that way. Okay. Otherwise, I mean, what's difficult about using Vegas lines for start sit is that oftentimes lines are for, I'll say, some of the better players. And like, you don't really need the line for Cooper Kupp, right? You're starting Cooper Kupp versus, right, for this example here, I'm going to doubt Van Jefferson maybe he has a prop line, right? Or maybe Pollard does, but typically you're probably going with whoever's projecting better. And then what do you need, a ceiling play or a floor play? But I'll agree, start sit decisions are my least favorite as well. I do a couple teams with my dad every year, and start to sit decisions are always, especially if I pick the wrong one, I'm always feeling pretty stupid afterwards.
Nothing like having to face up to dad after screwing up, right?
Oh, exactly.
You just mentioned your dad. When I was in Vegas I think it was 2 years ago, Dan, or 3 years ago. When did we run into each other? It was a couple years ago. For some reason I signed up for an auction. Don't ask me why. It's like my least experienced type of draft. But I went, and there was a father-son combo that just probably destroyed the league. Was that you and your dad?
I don't think we've done an auction together,
okay.
No, but
all right.
We've it's usually our drafts go better with each other than individually, but that's probably just having the guy to calm the other one down when they get too high on a player. That's why
I love drafting with Dan, because he just he's like the voice of reason.
Yeah, I think all of us on the Goat District, we different ones of us shared different teams. Like Theo and me and JD, Andrew, and Andrew, me and the sharing kind of went all different ways, and really I think worked out pretty well for everybody. Because it's two people put their head together. It helps.
For sure.
And I wanted to backtrack. I thought Kyle made a great point on start sit decisions, and I think it's one thing that a lot of players maybe won't look at is it's ceilings versus floors and understanding your matchup. And I think that's something Dan's been harping on pretty much this entire playoffs. If you're an underdog, you have to be realistic with your guys. You can't hope that they're going to overperform, where, starting a guy who might be a floor play, high touches guy, might be what your team needs one week, and your team might need to use, Van Jefferson, the other week, or like looking at tight end spots. We talked about Hunter Henry earlier. If I'm a big underdog, I absolutely want to shove Hunter Henry in that lineup on the chance that he is going to have a touchdown smash week, where I might want to look at a Cole Kmet that's going to get his 4 catches, as a floor play. So I think that's something Dan's been saying for weeks. Kyle just said tonight, and I think that's one thing that don't just look at, hey, this guy's ranked 24th by this analyst and this guy's ranked 27th, so maybe I should start the guy ranked 24th. I think that's a poor process. I think like we have to look at range of outcomes, floors and ceilings. I think that's a great way of looking at things and an underutilized way of looking at things.
Before we go to our next, because I see there's a couple other great questions coming up here. Who are some of your most owned players of 2021 that maybe we didn't mention today, but that have brought, whether they brought you success or not? Who are guys that you've got in your portfolio frequently?
Start with the bad. A lot of Jerry Jeudy this year. Somebody that, especially in prime times, I'm very much an ADP based drafter where if I see a big value on a player, I'll take him. And Jeudy was somebody that just kept falling. Same with Tyler Lockett, who I actually don't think Tyler Lockett was bad process. I think, unfortunately with Russ getting hurt, otherwise he could have had a pretty monstrous season. But the good side, a lot of Cooper Kupp. Damian Harris has been a good pick this year, and Antonio Brown, when he's played, has averaged over 20 points a game. So he hasn't had games where he comes on, scores 2 points, and limps off, which is somebody like AJ Brown has killed me this year with that. So
it's true, especially at his ADP. Those are kind of the guys you get, right? So and I know Dan was high on him. I've got him on that one NFFC team I talked about, and he pulled a nice 20 for me this last weekend. All right, we'll do one more before we get to the to some more questions. What's your lesson of 2021, Kyle? Like, what did you learn in 2021 that's going to help you continue this success moving forward?
Yeah, I think it's don't try to diversify as much. And I know we talked about this a little bit earlier, but I did 7 primetime teams this year, and probably in 2 or 3 of them, I took guys that I just clearly had ranked lower because I already had, a share or 2 of that. And, I think you get enough diversification throughout just naturally in the draft that you don't have to sacrifice projected points or sacrifice a couple spots on your list or tiers just to get different in the first couple of rounds. I think the only place that I'm really going to diversify next year is round 1. And that's just because if you lose your first round pick, it's really, really tough to win. But, the league winners really sit oftentimes in that 3rd, 4th round. And so kind of going after and just consistently hammering some of the best picks in that range, I think make a lot of sense.
I like it. All right, let's go back to our boy Reddy here. He kind of summed up his 3 questions that we didn't answer all in one for us. So let's go through them. He's been here from the beginning to the end. Guys, smash the like. If you like what Kyle is offering tonight, if we've helped you make it to week 17 and you're playing for a championship, smash the like and share with the friends. Let's start it, guys. Trey Lance coming in for Jimmy G because of injury. A lot of people thought by now he'd be the starter. Herbert or Lance? Dan, I'll go to you first. We'll start up top.
I'm not going to overthink this one. I'm just going with Herbert. There's a chance that Lance could outperform him, but I'm probably, unless even if I need total ceiling, it is still Herbert is a great pick. I just feel more comfortable with him.
Take the guy who's shown you, right, Dan? That's what you always tell me.
Exactly.
The guy who's been doing it till now. Let the other guy change your mind first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I would have Lance as like a borderline QB1 this week. I think it's exciting to think of him against Houston, but like Dan said, don't overthink it. It's one of these things where people might overthink the matchup too much, where Denver's a much harder matchup versus QBs. Houston's a soft matchup versus QBs, but we haven't seen Lance at all. You've seen Herbert smash. I would absolutely go with Herbert in this situation. I'd have him ranked ahead. What about you, Kyle?
Yeah, I would have too hard of a time to playing Trey Lance unless I absolutely need a miracle, frankly. But I think Herbert's ceiling's higher anyway, so yeah, I'm probably just never playing anybody but Herbert here.
Conklin, a nice tight end 2 surprise for me this year in the FFPC. And those teams where I've lost like Waller or Kittle was hurt for a bit, and Higbee, a guy that maybe people had higher hopes on. Higbee or Conklin, Kyle?
I lean Conklin. I actually think Conklin's a pretty good tight end overall. Higbee's Higbee's been pretty hit or miss, and I've drafted Higbee in a few spots this year. Just watching him get 1 or 2 screens a game, and that's about it. He kind of needs to get in the end zone, whereas Conklin, I think, is probably good for 4 or 5 targets against Green Bay. What do you guys think?
Yeah, that's a tough one. As Joey pointed out in the chat, the Ravens are terrible against the tight end, and so I never feel bad playing any tight end that's got a pulse against the Ravens. With Conklin, I think if Thielen plays, then I'm maybe a little bit more likely to put Higbee in. But if Thielen's not playing, I think Conklin's definitely the play there. What do you think, Theo?
Yeah. Great call by Joey. We've talked about that on the show earlier in the year. The Ravens are like 27th against tight ends. They're very bad, but I think Green Bay is also pretty generous to tight ends as well. I might lean Conklin. I just like the way he looks. It seems like they're trying to do things for him. Higbee obviously is pretty close to him in the rankings. It's really kind of a flip your coin type situation, but I might lean Conklin. I just think he's got a little bit more juice.
Yeah, I also wonder who Baltimore is going to be starting at quarterback this week. I don't know. I'm assuming that Huntley is going to clear, but if for whatever reason that doesn't happen, how much are the Rams even going to have to throw the ball?
Yeah, that could be true. I mean, if Huntley did look good, and you almost wonder if the Ravens don't want to start him over Lamar the way that Lamar was playing before getting hurt. But it's tough.
So they also have the new COVID rules now, which is going to be interesting. Where
the 5 versus 10,
yeah, which is huge because guys like Gabe Davis, Cole Beasley, we're looking like guys that would never see the field again. But I think they might be back this weekend. So it's just an odd week in terms of guys getting clear. But yeah, Huntley really looked good. It was very disappointing to a lot of teams last week when he was announced out. So I think that would be a really big boon for them. The Ravens are desperate. Never underestimate the Ravens when they're in a desperate situation. Doesn't matter who they're playing. I mean, they really need this win this week, and I think that they're going to absolutely go for it. So it's that'll be a fun game for sure.
Let's talk defenses real quick. Miami is playing Tennessee, and Chicago is at home against the Giants. I'll just go straight up Chicago here versus the Giants. Kyle, you're smiling.
I mean, it's tough because Miami's been on fire, right? Yep. But at the same time, Chicago's playing the Giants. So, I mean, I think they're both actually fine plays. I hesitate to commit to one right here, but I'm probably playing Miami just because of how hot they are. But Chicago definitely has a solid matchup, and how healthy is Chicago's defense right now is the other side of things, right? How much did they score against Seattle last week? Sorry if anybody knows that off the top of their head, but because that was probably one of the better games that they played.
Yeah,
that's a really hard one. Tennessee has AJ Brown looked fantastic last week. He looked like the reason we were drafting him so high earlier this year, and had a 30-plus point game. But they haven't broke 20 points, I think, in something like 6 weeks. So Tennessee's an offense that I think that Miami defense is going to be able to potentially manage. It's a really classic start-sit situation where you have this red-hot defense that looks like one of the league's best versus
a good matchup.
It's just this is what Week 17 is. It's just these hard decisions. The Giants' offense looks absolutely horrible. So I don't think that the Bears would hurt you, but I do think that Miami defense has some upside to do some things and really, really disrupt Tannehill. You've also got the revenge factor, with the whole Tannehill revenge game, which is a nice narrative there. This is a very tough one. I'd have to research a little more. But again, I don't think either one's gonna lose you the week. I might kind of lean Miami just because I think they're the better defense, but
I want to see the stats guys come out and show me the matchup, versus the streak team, the team that's on a hot streak, to see which. Dan, you have any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I'm going Miami here. I was just looking up to see, like what their ceiling and floor is, and Miami's got a much higher ceiling defensively as far as what they've been scoring.
Yeah, as a Colts fan, I hope Miami beats the shit out of Tennessee. So
yeah, so they've Miami's put up 26, 24, 19, 18. So they've put up some pretty big scores over the course of the season. I think Chicago topped out at like 12 points or something like that. This is FFPC scoring, which is, I guess, pretty similar to a lot of scoring systems. So I see Miami as being the much better play. I mean, they both of them have a floor that, is, well down into the single digits, 4 or 5 points. And, just Chicago seems much more likely to hit that floor than Miami, even against a team like the Giants. I mean, I do love the Chicago matchup, but I'm just not sure that they can take advantage of it.
All right, we'll do one more before we close this out. Our buddy Kyle, fellow Canadian, Kyle Senra, friend of the show, start sit question, 1 PPR RB, 1.25 PPR, wide receivers 1.75. Very complex league here. You guys can check the screen for the deets. Devontae Freeman, Justin Jackson, Devin Singletary, Christian Kirk, Tyler Higbee. Start 2 of these guys. What is it? Singletary and who just went off? Yeah, I guess. Who's Arizona playing?
Dallas.
And that's a high-scoring game. Yeah, I guess Kirk's scared to sit with Hopkins not being out.
The 1.75 PPR tight end scoring. Also, don't discount Higbee. This is a tough one. Kyle throwing curveballs with the weighted PPR scoring questions.
Yeah.
I love it.
I mean, if Austin Eckler's out, how could you not start Justin Jackson after last week, though? I mean, it was kind of a perfect storm because of the game situation where he got all those dump-off passes, but Herbert certainly was looking for him. This is a tough one. I would probably like to get Christian Kirk. He had a big missed opportunity last week, but he also saw a number of targets. I just think he's got a safe spot in a high total game. And then my second pick would probably be.
That's tough.
It's a really tough one. What about you, Kyle? Anything jump out at you?
Yeah, Christian Kirk's probably my number 1. I know Freeman's done pretty well this year. I'm not sure how much I can trust him. But yeah, if Eckler's out, I'm leaning Justin Jackson. If Eckler's in, it doesn't feel great, but maybe Devin Singletary.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Dan's logic. Look at the offense, in that game, and I'm going to go Kirk and Singletary. Slightly in Singletary. Dan, where are you at?
Yeah, Kirk and Singletary is probably where I'm going, because Eckler should be back. So Justin Jackson, I think, will be back to a part-time role at least. I'd feel most comfortable with those two.
You could see Singletary have a real nice game against Atlanta as well. That seems like the kind of game where you want to cram as many Bills in as possible. DFS as well.
Singletary is the reason why you just put depth at RB on your bench, man. Like, you know what I mean? How many people were poo-pooing Singletary, just trying to give him away for nothing, and now look, he's winning leagues.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I did, several leagues where I took both Zach Moss and Devin Singletary. And, if I couldn't, I took them both where I could, but I also didn't have any problem taking, just whoever was the cheapest then, which ended up being Singletary more often than not, especially as we got into August and September. So, that ended up working out okay. I mean, there's a few times I've thrown Singletary in there, and it's worked. I mean, he's not a high ceiling guy, but he's definitely getting you some points when sometimes that's at a premium.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing for us to think about for next year too, where you have some of these backfields where you can get both guys pretty cheap.
Yep.
Tampa's another one, right? You could have gotten Rojo and Fournette in the same draft pretty easily. And they're going in the range where everybody, including myself, is hopping all over, Elijah Moore, Rondale Moore, some of those types of guys. And so sometimes I think it makes sense to just
Arizona is another one where you can get them pretty cheap.
Yep, exactly. James Conner was, very, very cheap this year. And so kind of hopping on, if you can get shares of those backfields, it's not necessarily a wasted pick to have both when one of them could end up being an RB1 come the end of the year.
Great
unless
point.
it turns out to be a Jordan Howard, Matt Breida, Miami backfield.
Yeah.
2 years ago and a couple years back, and that did not work out as well. You got Myles Gaskin week 1, but yeah, it's a great point. I think that draft capital matters, and when you can get two guys, in the rounds, 9, 10, 11 range, it's definitely a strategy, and it can allow you to kind of punt RB. It's a great strategy, especially in hero RB, punt RB2 type builds as well.
Yeah, that's basically where I used it.
Yeah, and I'll caveat then. I'll refine my statement, Theo. On good offenses, we can do that.
Yes.
There you go. There you go. Absolutely.
Yeah, the Michael Carter, Tyler Johnson one didn't have quite the same effect on the bottom line.
I don't mind Carter and Dino right now.
No, definitely not. But as far as like redraft this year,
for sure,
he had a couple good weeks. But I mean, it was pretty hard to. At least one of them, it was pretty hard to see it coming. So,
guys, smash the like, smash the subscribe. Shout out to the chat. You guys dropped some great question. Johannes jumping in. We appreciate you. She's saying hi to Dan. And wants to talk rookie drafts. We'll definitely be doing that very soon, and we'll get in some awesome guests. I know Theo's already got his guest list that his Rolodex, if that's even a thing anymore. But no, man, we're gonna hit on all of that. Best ball, rookies. Kyle, it's been a blast, man. We appreciate you taking the time. We wish you the best of luck in the Bullet and any other monster tournaments that you're just trying to take it down like it's nothing. Remind the people where they can find you, anything else you want to tell them. And that's it, man.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for having me, guys. It was great to get on and talk shop before week 17. I do have a Twitter. I don't post very much. It's my last name and then my first name. So Hillesheim Kyle. So feel free to, if you want to follow somebody that doesn't tweet too much, but you'll get a reply here and there, feel free. And I hope everybody has a fantastic week 17.
Yeah, and follow Kyle. Kyle won the NFFC Primetime, so by that alone, he should get a ton of followers.
Yes,
very
go ask him questions. Go ask him questions, guys. He said, "Come on, ask him questions."
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, my guess is if you tweet at him, he'll probably he'll give you a response. So
yeah, I don't have much to sort through, so you'll get priority.
Yeah, see, there you go.
There you go.
I love it.
Get in on the ground floor. They always tell you.
Had to get one air horn in here. Theo, buddy, close. Guys, this is our last show of the year. The support that you guys have shown this year has been awesome. I know Theo's been bringing in some monster guests, just one after the other. Dan as well. We've been trying to bring you guys the best of the best, and we're going to keep trying to do that. So, Theo, anything to add, anything to remind the people before we close this show and this year out?
No, I think that it's been a great season for the GOAT District. It's been really a pleasure doing shows with you guys, and it's great for us to look back and see some of the guys we've had on doing so well and playing for such meaningful prizes. Counting Kyle tonight, we have, I believe, 5 of the top 15 in the NFFC Primetime. Chris Vaccaro came on the show twice this past year. He's second overall in the Primetime. Matt Modica came on the GOAT District, and has 2 of the top 10, which is that's just gangster shit. If you want to get serious, having 2 in the top 10 is pretty fucking awesome. And then Chad's up there as well, Chad Schrader. So it's and we talked about the FFCC best ball. We talked about Austin Martin's been on the show. He's right up there in the main event. So we've had some of the best best players in the country, and you're seeing them do really well. I have a couple teams playing for meaningful money this week in Dynasty, and I have one football guys team that I'm hopeful does well. So it's exciting, but it's been a great process with you and Dan, and I can't wait for the off season. I'm sure we're gonna have some awesome guests as well. And shout out to Andrew, Andrew Schellenberg, who we did so many great shows with this season on the GOAT District too. So it's just been a blast, and I hope everybody listening wins some of these Week 17 championships. And we're pulling for you.
Yeah, and you got to watch out for the people in the chat too. I mean, we got some heavy hitters out there. I mean, like I found out just a couple of weeks ago, Johannes is in one of my 1250 dynos, and I was like,
Damn.
I've been giving away this stuff for free.
Yeah, there you go.
I love it.
Dan's gonna start lying around rookie draft season. He's gonna give you the guy. He's gonna just get the big fake outs. Guarded.
Nice.
I don't know. We're gonna have to have an episode for everybody else, and then we'll have like a fake one for Johannes, so I can.
There you go. There you go.
So that's the respect you're getting, Johannes. I'm worried about you. She had a really good team in our league, and just got destroyed by injuries. So she's going to be coming back really strong, I'm afraid, next year. So I got to watch out for her and a few other people in that league.
Dan, we're not worried about you. I'm sure you're good. Guys, well, we appreciate you guys in the chat. We appreciate you guys hanging with us in 2021. I know it's been an odd and up and down type of season, but hopefully, you've stuck with us. We appreciate all the support you guys have shown. Hopefully we've helped you guys out, and you are playing for some ships this week. Guys, Happy New Year's, man. Just enjoy this time. Enjoy even, this times that we've got playoff challenge. Check out myffpc.com. Just different ways for you to add some excitement, some fun between now and as we approach into the new season, the new off season, I guess we can call it, whether that's best ball or whatever it is you do during that year. But hopefully you're with us. Go get that ship, guys. Happy New Year's, and we'll check you guys all later.
GOAT District, the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden, they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man. Y'all know what to do. It's the and I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.